Morning, guys. Hope you had a good Easter break. I thought I'd just do a really quick recap on the last 24 hours because I think there's some interesting bits to pull out from a data perspective on the futures. So let's start with the SPX that was open Monday while we were shut. With this gap up here and rally from open, you can see we rallied about 18 points in the first couple of hours. So I did put it on the chat. Hopefully you all receive this, but these are the past outcomes, right, of the first day after the US has been closed for a holiday. So you can see, like, this is, to my mind, super compelling. There's a lot of red there. Couple of rallies, 52, 27, 21, but other than that, all negative. So I guess the way that I looked at that after this rally in the first open 2 hours here, essentially a bit of a free hit to go lower. So especially if you look at the moves today low, I mean, the smallest move today low in history on a reopening was 5 points. So essentially, again, one way to interpret this is at this point here, you've basically got 100% probability historically that you're going to get at least a 23 point move lower at some point throughout that day. So obviously we went a lot lower from there. So that was, quite an easy trade if you look at the kind of the past data on that. Rolling into today on the Aussie, what do we have? We obviously had that high probability long that came off. One thing I wanted to mention on the Aussie is, so wasn't really expecting this massive gap down and fall in pre-market. One thing to keep in mind is if we ever get a large gap down and a negative pre-market like we had today, you've got a historically 100% past occurrence of an intraday high of at least 10 points. So basically what that says is if we gap down and fall in pre-market, we never just keep falling, right? Even if we do fall, we at least get a bump higher. So one way to interpret that is when you look at this fall from open, which I think was 16, 17 points, at this point here, you're historically looking at 100% success rate of at least a 27 point move higher. That's one way to look at it. So these are the ones that you just need to keep an eye out for and I guess go hard at them as long as you can weather that initial fall. My strategy, which is not everyone's strategy obviously, but I'll keep going long every 10 points below here when we have that kind of confidence that we're going to go higher at some point. And then obviously we just ended about flat. UK, as I said in the Substack, like generally end a lot lower when we go flat into a reopening. That didn't happen today, but if you were brave enough to continue to hold for that first hour and a half, you would have seen some nice gains on the short side there. And then the S&P, I just want to quickly mention tonight. So interesting little tidbit here. So if you look at the excuse me, the major falls on the S&P of say over 50 points, about 43% of those falls, which are a pretty significant number, I think, have a fall in those first 2 hours of trade, right? So people are already positioning. Obviously, the physical market shuts just before here, and market makers are already positioning going short before they go to bed in the States, right? So just something to look out for. It's not obviously not something to hang your hat on, but just a little indicator that potentially could signal that we've got some falls. And then obviously, as I always say, in the absence of any big data or events, if we're negative into Euro Open, so from the open, the day open, when we reopen in our morning to the Euro Open, if that's a negative number, that explains 95% of the directional moves for large moves. So it doesn't mean that we won't finish 10 points higher, 20 more points higher, but that it's very, very, very unlikely that we're going to rally significantly off that. So that combined with just want to show you quickly, again, this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but from my point of view, I'm kind of filtering, yesterday we kind of rallied during our session and the S&P finished lower. So I've just filtered kind of what happened yesterday and then filtering, well, what happens if that's happened yesterday and we fall into the open. So kind of around this point here where we started to fall, it was pretty obvious to me that we were going to go negative into the open. So I simply did saying that we're going to be less than flat, we're going to be negative into the open today. And these are the kind of the results that historically have occurred. Now, when you look at moves to day low, the smallest move was 34 points lower. The average was 70. So I kind of immediately marked that on my chart here. And from this point here, I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but 25 points to the minimum move to day low. So I took some profit there and then taking a little bit further down. But yeah, interesting how it's played out, but it's good to get some volatility back in the market. So we'll see how it plays out over the next few days. Cheers.